Hi, everyone. Welcome to our pickleball presentation today. This is a little different because it's more about fun and games, so I hope you guys enjoy. All right, so we split our presentation up into 4 sections. The first one is just introducing the sport itself. The second section is we're going to go over the basic rules of the game. And our third section is a few tips for playing. And lastly, where can you play in the Niagara and St. Catharines region? All right, so starting off, what is pickleball? Pickleball is essentially a blend of 3 sports: ping pong, tennis, and badminton. And just like these 3 sports, pickleball can also be played in doubles or singles. So whether you have a partner or you're by yourself, you could always play.
When we talk about it being a combination of the 3 sports, it's important to point out why I think it's such a great sport for seniors, especially as it compares with tennis and to some extent badminton. One reason is because, especially compared with tennis, it's a much smaller court. And so you can get a good exercise, but you don't have to run as far. And compared with tennis and badminton, the racket, the paddle, is much, much smaller. So it's much easier to control. So for those 2 reasons, I think, especially for seniors, pickleball is a better sport than tennis and badminton. As I'm sure many of you are grandparents, I'd also like to point out that it's a very good game for young children, because basically for the reason of the paddle, the racket, young children have much greater difficulty with a long racket than they do with a pickleball paddle.
So we're going to talk about how the sport started. It was created in 1965 by Congressman Joel Pritchard at his home on Bainbridge Island in Washington. He wanted to play badminton with his kids, but they didn't have the proper equipment, so they improvised. They created pickleball as a way to entertain the whole family when they were bored. Why it's called pickleball. So Joan Pritchard, which was Congressman Joel's wife, attributed the combination of the sports to pickle boats in rowing. And in rowing, a pickle boat is a thrown together crew drawn at random from the leftovers of other boats. The pickleball itself. So pickleballs are really similar to wiffle balls, if you're familiar with those. They're plastic balls that have holes in it. But the difference between pickleballs and wiffle balls is that pickleballs are made of a lighter plastic. And there's 2 different kinds of pickleballs. There's indoor and outdoor pickleballs. Pickleballs for indoors will have 26 holes, while pickleballs for outdoors will have 40 holes, which makes them less affected by wind resistance. All right, moving on to section 2, the rules of the game. So here we have a diagram of the court in pickleball. It's played on the same size court as a badminton court. So it is 44 feet in length and 20 feet in width. The net in the middle is 36 inches tall. And as you can see, this highlighted orange area, we call that the non-volley zone or the kitchen. So the basic rules, boundaries. The ball cannot bounce outside of the white lines. For rallies, the ball can only bounce once on each side. For serving, it must be done underhand diagonally from the baseline, and it can't land in the kitchen or the non-volley zone. And the kitchen, you cannot volley while standing inside the kitchen. And the games end at 11, 15, or 21 points.
It's normally only played to 21 points in competition. When you're playing socially, it's normally to 11 or 15 points. The basic game is generally considered to be to 15 points, but very often where pickleball is played, it can get very busy, and so it may take a long time between people can play. So very often when it's busy, wherever it's being played, the person who is running it will say, okay, everybody change over to 11-point games now, so that they take place a little bit quicker, and so more people can get to play. So generally, recreationally, 11 or 15, competitively, often 21 points.
Moving on. Just a few of the different rules. There is a 2 bounce rule. The ball must bounce once on both sides after the serve. no serve and volley, and earning points. Points can only be earned when your team is the one that serves. If you win the point, the server and the partner switch sides.
I mean, the first thing I'd like to comment on is the picture of people playing, because this is really the first time that you've had the opportunity to see the paddles. They're solid. They can vary a little bit in shape. They're about 2.5 times the size of a ping pong or table tennis paddle. And there are rules about maximum size and things like that, but it's generally something we don't worry about very much with recreational play. But probably the most distinctive rule of pickleball is for serving. As you serve, for example, from the right side. So the person in salmon here would serve to the person with the beige top. And you have to serve underhand. You can either drop it off your hand or you can bounce it on the court. The returner returns the serve. The serving team has to let that bounce. Now, this is a huge difference from tennis, because in tennis, you can serve and volley. The serving team can hit the ball back when it's in the air, and you can't do that. Well, you can do it, but it's against the rules and the point will be against you. So that's a huge difference from what tennis players, especially who switch to pickleball. And the other thing is you can only win points on your serve. And so if, let's imagine the players in salmon are serving, the woman serves and wins the point from the right-hand court. For the next serve, she goes over to the left-hand side and her partner goes over to the right. And you keep doing that while you win points. When you lose the point, the serve goes over to the other team.
All right, now we're going to move on to some tips for playing. So the first tip is don't stay in no man's land. The most advantageous spot on the court is right up on the kitchen line. It puts pressure on your opponents and allows you to hit at multiple angles.
And so when you serve, when you serve, both players are generally behind the baseline, and you will normally wait to see the strength of the return, but your objective is to get up to the kitchen line as quickly as you can. So because as the notes say, from there you can control the court. But where you don't want to stand is in that area marked as no man's land, because if you stand in that area, you're going to end up with a lot of balls hit right at your feet. And it's extremely difficult to hit balls that are at your feet. You want to be back to hit them after they've bounced, or you want to be on the kitchen line to be able to volley for the most part.
Moving on. So another tip is to hit to the opponent's backhand. Most players, regardless of skill level, are weaker with their backhand than their forehand. It's much easier to hit with your forehand. Lastly, communication is key. This really applies to any sport or anything you do in general. Some of the things you could call when you're playing pickleball is when you're playing doubles, get into the habit of calling yours or mine to make it clear who's going to hit the ball. So you can see in this photo, it does look a little confusing, like both of those players are going for the ball. So communication would definitely help in this scenario. All right, and lastly, we're going to end off with giving a few locations where you can play. Firstly, in the Niagara region, there's plenty of places you could play, and you can look it up online. But we put in 6 key spots that you could play at: F.J. Miller Park, Glengate Park, Ontario Park, Prince Charles Park, Riverview Park, and Teresa Park. And in St. Catharines, you can play at Haig Bowl Arena, Lester B. Pearson Park, Centennial Sports Park, Kiwanis Park, Reservoir State Park, and Pickleball Island. Oh, that's interesting. They have a whole island for pickleball.